Hey everyone, there's a few jumpstarts that just came out for Savage Worlds that all look really interesting, and I'll probably talk about all of them, but today I'd like to just start off by talking about a new jumpstart by Tracy Sizemore called Han Cluster. Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. Would love your support, likes, subscribes, all that good stuff that YouTube likes to see. If you've got interesting jumpstarts that you know of that came out that should be looked at, drop them in the comments. Your thoughts on the Han cluster, drop them in the comments, and that would all be great. So the Han cluster is a jumpstart with a Kickstarter, if I read it right, planned for 2024, which I guess I don't know if it's earlier or later in 2024. And what is the Han cluster? It's a kind of a unique sci-fi setting, kind of an optimistic human future where although Earth and the colonies in the Han cluster, which is a cluster of stars, is a little bit at tension. Overall, it's a positive, I think it's going to be a positive look at the future. And so it starts with kind of this concept that Earth was, in bad shape. So I think the gentleman's name is Han, and thus there's the name of the Han cluster. Developed this new propulsion system that allowed us to go and colonize these other star systems. At the same time, we discovered something called Nex, or the Nexus, which is kind of an adjacent dimension to our own that allows movement and out-of-body projections. And that's kind of the that's sort of the key cool part of there's probably going to be a lot of cool parts, but from the jumpstart, that's the cool part, I think, is what makes this interesting is this Nexus. And I'll talk about that in a second. What you don't find in this book, and again, I should mention that this is the first one when it came out. I downloaded it right away, read through it. There might be some additions that come later to the jumpstart as time goes on, but the copy I had, it did not include new edges. It did not include new hindrances that would kind of define more of the setting flavor that you might find in some other jumpstarts where they do have some of the edges and things that you'll find in the game. But it spends a good chunk of time, 3 pages, talking about this Nexus. So it defines kind of so we start off in the beginning, it defines the conceits, the background, the history, kind of what's expected from adventuring. There's the adventure in the book, which is pretty good. Tracy Sizemore is known for doing some very good adventures, and it's a good adventure. When I say pretty good, I mean it's a good adventure. And what's nice is through the adventure, you get more flavor of the setting. The adventure there builds upon the information that was in the beginning of the jumpstart that you read and said, oh, I understand how this setting's set up. It adds some more, and you get a feel for why the Nexus is important because, and I might as well just get into it. So the Nexus, or the Nex, humans can detach from their bodies and they can travel through this kind of extra dimension. They appear as semi-corporeal apparitions to others. And in the jumpstart, they talk about how that's critical to the setting, and I can see why, with the 3 pages describing it. It affects everything from movement, how the players move, how they interact with the physical environment, communication. Like one of the cool things that they define is called X-bonded beings. So those who travel in the Nexus together or they spend time with each other, they can have a strong kind of connection, and so they can easily communicate with each other. And so that allows them to be in on different planets and still communicate with each other. So it adds this very interesting thing where you always think about, at least how I thought about it when I saw it, you always think about, well, how do we keep everybody on the spaceship so we can fly from sector to sector, and what happens if somebody gets left behind? Well, here it's just spanning this entire cluster, and you can communicate, and as an X-bonded being, things are kind of easier to interact with. And you can share a Benny as an X-bonded person too. So the Nexus is really interesting, and there's weapons. They didn't really get into it too much in the jumpstart, but there's X weapons, and there's things that. So a lot of it appears a lot's going to be revolving around this Nexus thing, which is pretty cool. So I mentioned the adventure, lots in it. You learn more about how the Nexus works because of the way the adventure is structured. So overall, a pretty good jumpstart. I think the one thing I would have liked to see is some more of the edges and hindrances you might find that are going to be adding interest to the setting. Like I'm sure there's probably going to be a hindrance somewhere, which is somebody who's not as in tune with the Nexus, and so that might be an interesting hindrance to have. And I'm sure there's plenty of edges which impact how people interact with the Nexus and their capabilities. And it would have been kind of cool to see that in the Jumpstart. But overall, it looks like a really interesting new Savage World setting. I love sci-fi, so it's always cool when there's a new sci-fi setting. Not sure if it's going to be hard science or lighter sci-fi, but this concept of the Nexus is really cool. And so I think I'm looking forward to seeing the Jumpstart come out sometime in 2024. You can pick up the Jumpstart drive-through RPG. It's a pay what you want, suggested cost $5. I think it's well worth dropping $5 on it just to take a look at it and see if that makes sense. And you get a good adventure. So even if you're just looking for something that's a sci-fi adventure that you can plug into your campaign, I'm sure you could figure out some way to work around the fact your campaign may not have a Nexus in it. But anyway, good stuff. Just wanted to share this Jumpstart I ran into and I thought was pretty cool. So again, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff, like, subscribe, support. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.